Alright folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and for today's guitar tutorial we are going to learn all the 7 different chords in the key of C. And before we start, just a quick heads up is you can download the handwritten notes for this lesson linked in the description box. Alright, so these are all the 7 chords in the key of C, and let me just play it once for you. So here goes. We'll start from C. 1, 2, 3, go, and C, 2, 3. Going to D minor, 2, 3, 4, and E minor, 2, 3, 4, and F, 2, 3, 4, and G7, 2, 3, 4, and A minor, 2, 3, 4, and a B minor 7 flat 5, long name, back to C, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's start with the very first chord, which is your regular C chord. And what you see is that I'm using my index finger on the first fret of your second string. The middle finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your fourth string. And last but not least, you have your ring finger on the third fret of your fifth string. Okay, so the C chord is a 5-string chord. So when you strike, make sure that you start from the A string right here. Alright, so this is how it sounds like, and always check and make sure that you have a good curvature of your fingers so that you do not block the next string below from ringing. Okay, so this is how the C chord sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now it's going to be good if you can use your thumb and just glide through the 5 strings and just make sure that every single string is ringing clearly. Because very much at times whenever you're strumming all 5 strings, if you have a dead sound, it's going to be hard to find which is the note that is not ringing clearly, since all the 5 strings are ringing simultaneously. Okay, alright, so just one string at a time, just check. Right, so that's your C chord. Now let's move on to the second chord that we have, which is going to be a D minor chord. Alright, so for this D minor chord, what I'm doing is I have my index finger on the first fret of your first string. The middle finger is going to be on the second fret of your third string. And last but not least, you have your ring finger on the third fret of your second string. Okay, now my preference for the D minor chord is to use my ring finger, but some folks might feel more comfortable playing that with the pinky. So whichever finger, as long as you're getting the same note on the third fret of your second string, that's fine. Okay, so for this D minor chord, it's a 4-string chord, which means that whenever you strike, you want to start from the D note right here. Okay, and this is how the D minor chord sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, and D minor, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so let's move on to the third chord that we have, and this is going to be quite a simple one. That's your E minor chord. Okay, and the way we play that E minor chord is I'm using my index finger on the second fret of your fifth string, and then I have my middle finger on the second fret of the fourth string. Okay, so some folks might prefer playing the E minor chord with your middle finger and your ring finger, and that's fine. That's fine too. Right? But my preference is to use the index finger and the middle finger. So for the E minor chord, we strike all 6 strings from the low E string to the high E string. Okay, and here goes. 1, 2, 3, go, and E minor, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so quick heads up is always check and make sure that you're letting all the notes ring cleanly. Okay, so thus far we've got the C chord, we've got the D minor chord, and then we've got the E minor chord. Okay, now the fourth chord that we have is going to be slightly tougher because it's what we call a half bar chord. Alright, now a half bar chord happens when your index finger has to bar a couple of strings. All right. So in the context of an F chord, the index finger has to cover the first fret of your first and your second string. Okay. And then you will have your middle finger on the second fret of your third string, and then last but not least, you will have your ring finger on the third fret of your fourth string. Okay, so if you look closely at the placement of my index finger, you will find that my nails are not facing you, but the nails are facing to the left. Okay, to the left. So just make sure that you're using the thumb side of your index finger to get these two strings down. Okay, and make sure that as you're playing this half bar F chord, you are trying to keep your elbows tucked in close to you. Okay, so once you get that, you add your middle finger in on the second fret of your third string, ring finger on the third fret of your fourth string. Okay, and the F chord is going to be a 4-string chord. So what you want to do is to make sure that the nail of your index finger is prepared on the D string. Okay, and this is how it sounds like, the F chord. 1, 2, 3, go, and F, 2, 3, 4, again, F, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's your F chord. And now, try and see if you're able to link up these 4 chords thus far. C, D minor, E minor, and also your F chord. All right. So as you're trying to switch those chords, just make sure that all of your fingers are forming that shape in tandem. So we are not looking at this. Okay. So if you're shifting one finger at a time, by the time you're forming the full chord, you're going to be late for that bar. Okay, so just make sure that all of your fingers are moving at the same time. And this is how it sounds like. So only using downstrokes. So here goes. 1, 2, 3, go. And C, 2, 3, 4, and D minor, 2, 3, 4, and E minor, 2, 3, 4, and F, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's try that once more. 1, 2, 3, go. And C, 2, 3, 4, and D minor, 2, 3, 4, and E minor, 2, 3, 4, and F, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so give that 4 chords a shot and make sure that you're able to maintain the timing of your right hand. Okay? Alright, so I trust that you've gotten these 4 chord shapes down: the C chord, the D minor, the E minor, as well as the half bar F chord that we have right here. Okay, so now let's move on to the 5th chord that we have. So we are playing a G7 chord. Okay, so now the G7 chord requires your index finger to be on the first fret of your first string. The middle finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your 5th string, and then your ring finger, it's going to be on the 3rd fret of your 6th string. All right, so the G7 chord is going to be a 6-string chord. Okay, so as you are strumming this G7 chord, just make sure that you're striking from the 6th string all the way down to the 1st string. Okay, now in the key of C, we are free to use either a G7 or a regular G chord as the 5th chord. All right, but just for this lesson, we are using a G7. Okay, so now what happens is whenever you're trying to play a G7 chord, just remember that it kind of looks like a C chord shape, except you're shifting your ring finger and your middle finger up a string set, and then your index finger goes down a string set. Okay, so that's your C chord, and that is your G7 chord. So what I'm doing is I'm just extending the space between the index finger and the middle finger. Okay, so let's get your G7 and we are going to strum together. 1, 2, 3, go. And G7, 2, 3, 4. A G7, 2, 3, 4. Alright? Same thing, just make sure that all the strings are ringing clearly. Okay? So let's move on to chord number 6, and it's going to be an A minor chord. So what we have here is the index finger, it's on the first fret of your second string. The middle finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your fourth string. And last but not least, the ring finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your third string. Okay? So, quick heads up is the A minor chord, it's going to be a 5-string chord. So just strike from the A string all the way down to the first string. Okay? And take note of the curvature of the fingers. You do not want your fingers to kind of tilt downwards. Okay? Just try and keep the first joint of your fingers perpendicular to the fretboard. Okay? So, here goes. Ready? A minor. 1, 2, 3, go. And A minor. 2, 3, 4. And A minor. 2, 3. Alright? Good. So let's move on to the 7th chord, and the 7th chord is going to be slightly trickier. Okay, so now what happens is for the 7th chord we have this long name chord. Okay, it's called a B minor 7 flat 5. Okay, it could be a B diminished chord in the context of a C major key, but just for this lesson we're playing it as a B minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so let me just guide you on the fingering slowly. So what we have is your index finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your 5th string. The middle finger, it's going to be on the second fret of your 3rd string. The ring finger, it's going to be on the 3rd fret of your 4th string. And last but not least, your pinky, it's going to be on the 3rd fret of your 2nd string. Okay, so it kind of looks like a zigzag chord. Yeah, so they just kind of toggle 1 fret and 1 string. Okay, so now the tricky part about playing this B minor 7 flat 5 chord is, now if you look at my index finger right here, I'm using the knuckle part of my index finger just right here, close to where my knuckle is, to kind of block the 1st string from ringing. So it's going to be a dead note right here. So as I'm striking the string, I'm only trying to get the middle 4 strings to ring clearly. Okay, so strings 5, 4, 3, and 2, the 1st string is going to be a muted string. Alright, so check this out. This is how it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, and B minor 7 flat 5. A B minor 7 flat 5 again. Okay, so just make sure that you're able to get all 4 strings ringing clearly. Okay, and of course, last but not least, we are going back to your C chord right here. Okay, so these are all the 7 chords in the key of C. We lead off with a C chord. That's the 1st chord. The 2nd chord is a D minor. Alright, the 3rd chord is an E minor. The 4th chord is an F chord. The 5th chord is a G7. The 6th chord is an A minor. And the 7th chord is a B minor 7 flat 5. Back to a C chord. Okay? So now, the final step that you want to try and do is to be able to play the chords, all 7 chords, in ascending order and descending order. Okay, so if you look at the chord progression practice, this is what we have. Okay, so we're playing from C to C and then C back down to a C chord again. Alright, so here goes. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. And C, 2, 3, and change to D minor, 2, 3, 4, and E 4, and A minor, 2, 3, 4, and B minor 7, flat 5, and back to C, 2, 3, descending now, C, 2, 3, 4, and B minor 7, flat 5, going to A minor, 2, 3, 4, and G7, 2, 3, 4, and F, 2, 3, 4, and E minor, 2, 3, 4, and D minor, 2, 3, and back to C, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so I hope that helps you to get all the 7 chords down in the key of C. Practice, practice, and enjoy. Thank you. Bye.